Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Vernon?
All is well, all is well, thank you.
Good. Good deal. This is Rebecca, and I understand that you've been told that I would call at 1 o'clock. So I'm really nervous about this because I've never done anything like this. But I would like to get some information, about what you do and what will happen, if we do an interview.
Yes, well, my show is called Vibing with Don Vito, and it's a show about women who are incarcerated in prison. And basically what I do with the interviews, which I've interviewed several women already, is to give them a chance to tell their side of the story. See, a lot of people, when they read in the newspaper or they see on the news or they Google you and stuff like that, they see the prosecution side of the story. They don't hear your side of the story. And no matter if you did the crime or you didn't do the crime, it's important to tell your side of the story. So that's what it's all about.
Right. That's the way I feel. And I've tried for a long time. I don't have a lot of family on the outside. And my sister is, she's going to be 68 years old. I've been locked down for 5 years. So she was, already in her 60s. And, I've asked, help me get the word out there. Get me. I even found out how to get my own website and gave her the information, but she never did it. And I felt like if I could get my word out there and get petitions and, just anything, maybe the one person who could help me would read my story. And I've not been able. I've not been able to do anything like that. So when I heard about you, I was very interested because, I've had other people say, well, they could be making money off your story. And I'm like, I don't see how. And even still, if you were making money off of my story, that one person who reads it that could help me, may still do that. So I was like, well, I want to call him and check it out and see, I need to know, what you want from me. Do you want cops' names, prosecutors' names, what all would you want from me?
Well, pretty much, I'm going to just start off by, just talking about your story, how you grew up and stuff like that, and, because you didn't just commit a crime. You had a life before that. You had a family before that. And just the way people get the feel of who Rebecca Crain is as a person, opposed to who Rebecca Crain is as a criminal.
Right.
See where I'm coming from?
Yeah, because I do. Yeah, I do.
So how was life growing up at? Where did you grow up at?
I grew up in a small town in the country in Yancey County in North Carolina. Well, my family had lived in High Point, which is like a bigger city, and my dad cut trees for a living and did, tree work. He called it tree work. And when I was 12, we moved to the mountains where he was from. So he bought 15 acres of land that was like an uncleared side of a mountain, and we went and cleared it, and we built just like a little lean-to, and we camped out in the summer. And then we ended up building a log house there in that site. But we went from having all the amenities from, running water, hot water, electricity, to not having any of that for a while, until we got the house built. So it's kind of a weird deal, because we had to carry water and cook on a campfire and, so I was there from the time I was 12 until I got married when I was 18 and left there. And I had a baby out of wedlock when I was 17, and my baby was born with a birth defect, and so she died, at birth. And so that was really hard because my sister was pregnant at the same time, and there were 2 months apart in the ages, so that that was real hard for me. And so I got married a guy that I went to school with, and that didn't go very well. He was abusive, so we had one child, and then we broke up about 7 years later. And I had started smoking pot when I was like 13 or so. My older brothers and sisters introduced me to it. So I was like, you know, I was a pothead, you know, most of my life. And I like smoking pot, you know. But I was responsible. I worked. You know, I raised my child. I did the things that I was supposed to do, you know, to be responsible. You know, I was never a prostitute or, you know, anything like that. So, I mean, you know, I could talk for days just about my upbringing and my life, you know, before now, because, like, you know, now I'm 63 years old. So,
yes.
You know, a lot happened in 60. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. So you said the relationship was abusive.
Yeah.
In what kind of way?
Physical. My husband, he would get drunk, and like usually it was because he would try to have sex when he was drunk, and he couldn't. But he took it out on me. He was very jealous. He was a very jealous man, and I went shopping with my neighbor one day. I babysit children at home, so I had a little bit of spending money. So my neighbor and I had went shopping, and he comes in from work, and I had bought like a negligee, and he was like, "Where did you get this?" And I said, "Well, you know, me and Wanda, her name is Wanda, we went shopping, and I got this." And he's like, "Well, have you got supper cooked?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. We just got back a little bit ago." So it ends up being an argument, and, you know, it just went from that to worse. And he walks up to me, and he had his work boots on. So when he walked up to me, his feet were on each side of my left foot, and he got me by my shoulders, and he went to, like, you know, throw me into the floor, and my foot was caught between his feet. So my ankle snapped, and so my ankle was broken. So even though he didn't set out to break my ankle, but his action, you know, made that happen. So it was just, you know, a lot of stuff like that. Like he would get very angry, and I found out later that his mom had slept around on his dad when he was a kid, and she was actually sleeping with the mailman. And he woke up one night, and the dad works third shift. So he wakes up, and the mama is not in the house. So he calls the grandparents, and the grandparents come. Well, the mom is across the road with the mailman. So all this, you know, this big thing goes on. And then after that, she would buy him toys. She would talk to the guy, like when they'd go out shopping, she would meet the guy and talk to him, but she would bribe her son so he wouldn't tell on her. So he had trust issues. He never, ever trusted me. So, you know, and I didn't find this out until, you know, later that it came from that. So yeah, so that was pretty rough. And then I had my mom telling me, like right now my mom would be, this year she would be 97. My dad would be like 101. So, you know, they were a different time. And so my mom is always telling me, well, you made your bed, you got to lay in it. And I'm like, but I don't feel like, you know, just, you know, because I made a mistake that I should be punished for it. So it took a lot for me to leave.
Wow. So at what age was that?
When I left my husband?
Yes.
When I left him, I was, let me think a minute. Let's see, we were married in 76. We got married in 76, and I left him in 82, the beginning of 82. Yeah, we were married, we were together almost 7 years.
So
my son was 5 at the time. My son was
5?
Yeah, my son was 5, yeah.
How many kids do you have?
I just have the one. I had a miscarriage, and I had my little girl who was stillborn, and then I had my son, and I stopped after that because I felt very lucky to have him. So, and I was really scared to try to have any more. So I didn't.
So when you left your husband, what did you do after that?
I moved back with my mom and dad for a while, and I got a job, and I stayed there with them until I could afford to get my own place, you know, for my son and I. And then I just pretty much, you know, raised my son and worked. It's our town at this time had like one red light. It's not a big, you know, a big place. So there was a lot of agriculture. So I did a lot of like working in tobacco for people, like under the table, because that was the only work I could get. And working in like sewing factories and, you know, stuff like that, convenience stores, stuff like that. I worked in a sawmill once because my brother was working there, and I went down to take him some lunch one day, and the guy he was working with didn't come to work that day, so I was helping him out, and the boss came down, and he was like, you know, he knew my family, and I told him, I was like, you know, if this guy doesn't come back, will you hire me? Because I really need a job. I got a kid to support, and I need a job. So I came for the next 3 days. He said, well, I got to give him 3 days. So I came for the next 3 days and did the job, and then he hired me because the guy didn't come back. So, I mean, I was like, at this time I was like 27. I don't know if you know what a rip saw is, but I was tailing the rip saw, and you know, that's pretty hard work for a woman, you know. But
what do you do with the rip saw?
You know, I had my son. A rip saw is it's a saw set up it's kind of like a table saw, but it's a big, huge, in a sawmill. So it has like about 10 blades that are set an inch apart. And you take a board that has been cut from a tree into like a long board. And then you take the board and the person who feeds the rip saw puts the board in there, and it goes through all those blades, and it cuts it into long strips that they make pallets out of. So I took, after the saw had cut the pieces into smaller pieces, then I took them out and stacked them, got, you know, the ones that weren't any good, I got them out, and, you know, just kind of make sure that, you know, they were all good, and I put them in there was this metal thing that you put them in to stack them to where it had a certain number in the whole stack. And so I did that, and then I banded it, put the metal bands around it, and then I get the forklift, and I drive the forklift and get it and take it and go stack it, you know, in the area where they were stacked. So it was I lost 20 pounds the first month I worked there because it was very, very physical.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so you did what you had to do in order to pay your bills and take care of your kid.
Yeah, yeah.
So what happened?
And, you know,
Now, go ahead, finish.
What happened what?
No, I'm listening. You were saying something?
I was gonna say time, just, you know, a lot of time went by like that. I eventually, you know, and I had boyfriends. Like I had this one guy I lived with for about 5 years, and he got on crack, and that didn't work. He was abusive, and I feel like because he wasn't abusive until he started smoking crack. So, you know, I got away from that.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
So, Rebecca, can you remember where you left off?
Okay,
I'll be back.
Hello again.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
All right, so we're going to start back up with you talking about the boyfriend who was a crackhead.
Yeah. So, it's like, I don't know, it seems like, now that I look back, like, I chose the wrong people to start with. So, and it's like, it's weird because I can look at other people and say, well, you know what, you know, he's this and that, you know, and I can figure their stuff out, but I can't figure my own stuff out. So I felt like I made a bad choice. I've made bad choices with the husband. I made bad choice with him. He ended up, we're in a big fight, and the neighbors called the police. The police come, and, you know, he had hit me, and he cracked my front 4 teeth. I had to get my teeth capped, but I left. I got away from him. So through the years, I was just like, I stayed single until 1995, and got married again in 1995. But all those years, it was me and my son. I'm smoking pot. I never drank much, but I'm smoking pot. I'm working. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do still, and life went pretty good. I started driving a taxi cab, and I made better money. I made really good money then. And for somebody who had always had to work really hard physically, driving the taxi cab, it was a lot better money and not near as, hard of a job. So I did that for a long time. And in the meantime, my son's growing up. And we moved to Asheville, which is a big city, a bigger city than, where we were from. And so my son gets in the drug scene. And he went way more than I ever did into the drug scene. So, I don't know, I look back and I feel like, is it all my fault? Is this all my fault? And I feel like that, no, it isn't, I feel like it isn't, because I never felt like smoking pot was wrong. I never felt like it was the gateway drug. So I didn't hide it from my son that I did that. And at some point, he started smoking pot. He told my sister that I let him smoke pot. And so that, he wanted to smoke pot while he was at her house. But he had lied to her when he told her that. So that's how he started smoking pot, was by telling her that I was okay, Mom lets me. So then he started smoking pot. So then, before you know it, we're smoking pot together. And,
so let me ask you a question. So how did you get into the trouble that you got into? What led to that?
Okay, my son ended up doing meth, heroin, pills, whatever he could. He tried to sell some of these things out of my house, and I didn't go for that. I kicked him out. I've had to call the cops come and remove him from my house. I tried to put him in rehab, and in North Carolina, I don't know if it's statewide, but I know in Asheville the rehab is like 3 days, and then if you don't have a lot of money, it's just not happening. So we were. He was not living with me at this time. He had been, living away from me a pretty good time. He had moved in with me when he was 28, and so when this happened, he was. I think it was 35. So for 7 years, he was like in and out of my house. So he had been living away for a while. He had a girlfriend. They were living together. And we just mostly talked by phone. And he told me he was doing good, that he had kicked his habits, and he, was holding down a job and, all this good stuff. So there's been times when, I don't know, I guess because he's my child, I want to believe him. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I love him, so I want to think that, yeah, he's doing good. Because I didn't know, when he had been shooting up cocaine for 10 years before I ever found out. He kept that hid from me for 10 years before I ever learned about it. So, when I did learn about it, I was furious. So at the time when all this happened, he had been away, and we'd talk on the phone, and he'd tell me about all these things that him and the girlfriend and her mother, all the outings they would go on. And I was like, well, wow, that's pretty cool. I really miss when we did things like that. So he's like, yeah, we need to do something. So he called me up about a month later. He called me up and asked me, did I want to go to Carowinds? And that's an amusement park here in North Carolina. So I'm like, yeah, because I love amusement parks, and I wanted to do something with my son. So I'm like, yeah. So he comes and gets me, and we go, and we get there, and he's always slow. He stops at 25 stores, and just so by the time we got there, it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it costs a lot to go into the amusement park. So he said, well, we're gonna just not do this today. We're gonna see how much it costs and what their hours are, and then we're gonna come and do this another day. So I'm like, okay, that's fine with me. So he says, I want to go over to this hobby shop that I go to a lot when I'm down here in Charlotte, which is in Charlotte, near Charlotte. So we go to the hobby shop, and there was a fast food next door. So I went over to Hardee's to get me something to eat. And when I come back, he's talking to this guy in the parking lot and showing him his little, his remote control helicopter and his drone and all this stuff. So he says, so I get in the truck and I'm talking to the girlfriend, and he gets in a few minutes later and he's like, I'm going to get this guy a ride down the road. And I'm like, okay, because, I'm a cab driver. I didn't think nothing about that. So we start going, and I noticed that there's this car in front of us, this same car, and he's following it. He seems to be following it. And I asked him, are you following this car? And he ignored me. So a few minutes later, I'm like, Chris, what are you doing? What's really going on? And he said, the best thing you can do is just keep your fucking mouth shut. And so I'm looking at the girlfriend, and Brittany, her name's Brittany. I'm looking at Brittany, I'm like, what? So anyway, he pulls up, the car stops. It goes into like a residential area. It's off of the big main road. The car stops. He pulls up beside it. The guy that he had given the ride reaches out the window, and I'm in the back seat of a pickup truck that's got 4 doors, a king cab. So I just I point myself towards the girlfriend because I really don't want to see what is going on right now. So he does whatever he does. We go back up the road. He went back to the same spot, and he let the guy out. So then we start coming back home, and we travel, I don't know, a few miles, because I'm not familiar with this area. So we travel a few miles, and right before we were getting on the freeway, the expressway to come back, he stops at a convenience store. And when he got through at the convenience store, we were getting ready to pull out. He asked me if I would drive. And at this point, I'm like, I just wanted to get home. So I'm like, yeah. So I got out. I got into the driver's seat. I never pulled out of there, but I got into the driver's seat. And, before I could pull out, this undercover, a plain clothes. The guy didn't have on a uniform, so I guess he was an undercover. I don't know, but he comes up to the passenger side of the truck and starts asking for my son's ID and, all this stuff. What had happened was my son had bought heroin. This guy, that he knew this guy. He didn't just randomly meet this guy in the parking lot. He had plans to meet this guy that I didn't know about. So the guy had set my son up. So my son was trying to buy, I'm not sure how many grams of heroin it was, but it was not 28. But they gave him extra. They gave him more than 28. And I don't know if that was, I don't know why that was. But in North Carolina, anything 28 or above is trafficking. Mm. So my son was set up by a snitch. I was in the vehicle. That's basically what happened. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay. So that's what you're locked up for?
Yeah. Yeah. I had a court-appointed lawyer. I was in jail for 13 days. I got a court-appointed lawyer. He got me. Well, we all got out on you don't have to pay a bond. Like right. The bond was lowered from $100,000 to $10,000, and then it was unsecured. So I got out 13 days later on unsecured bond, and excuse me. It was, that was in September of 2014. And I had the court-appointed lawyer. I went to court in April of 2016. In the meantime, my lawyer, I met with him about 4 times. They offered me a plea for 26 to 44 months. And he told me that they really don't have anything on you. He said, his words were, it's not against the law to be where a crime is committed. They have to prove that you helped commit it. And he said they don't have that on you. So he told me he could get it dismissed if I went to trial. And then there would be nothing, it would be dismissed. So I felt like because I didn't do anything that I should go to trial because I didn't do anything. And I felt like that I could prove that I didn't do anything. So my son, I feel like had a better lawyer. He took his plea, which was 70 to 93 months, and I didn't take my plea, and they found me guilty, and I got 225 months to, I think it's 242. It's like 18 and a half years, 23 years.
So you got 18 and a half years for sitting in a car with a little bit over an ounce of heroin that your son bought, and you pretty much guilty by association.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I've got two of those sentences. They're run concurrent.
Wow.
I've got trafficking by possession and trafficking by transport.
You had nothing on you.
No, I had nothing on me. No, nothing.
Nothing in the car?
Nothing.
Your son had it on him?
It was in the car. My son had put it in it was a Pepsi can. The guy gave him he either put it in it or the guy gave him a fake Pepsi can. I never saw what came back in that window. I saw the guy start to reach his arm out, and I never saw what actually, because I didn't want to see. I did not want to see because I'm not a good liar.
Wow.
So I didn't want to see. So, I can honestly say.
The Pepsi can was sitting in the car, so they charged you and your son for the drugs.
Yeah, they charged all three of us.
They call it trafficking.
My son. Yeah.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Wow. Can you call back again? Or
North Carolina. Yeah. I'll call you right back. Yeah.
Just so we can finish it off. So we're going to talk about what you're saying about North Carolina laws. All right?
Okay.
All right. I'll be right back.
Hello.
All right. So you were telling me about the laws in North Carolina?
Yeah, they have mandatory minimums. And if you are convicted in a trial of trafficking, that's what you get. It's 225 to 282 months.
Which is what, 18 years?
It's 18 years. It's either 18 years and 6 months or 18 years and 9 months.
So if you would have took the plea,
if
you would have took the plea, you was getting like 5 years, somewhere around that.
I would have got 26 to 44 months, 2 years and 2 months to 3 years and 8 months.
Wow. So your son is already home?
No, he's supposed to get out next year.
Mm-hmm.
He took his plea in November of 2016. He got 70 to 93 months. But in the meantime, because, from the time, I was arrested in September of 2014. I didn't go to trial until April of 2016. In February of 2016, he was put in jail for child support, and he was held in jail. And in November of 2016, it's when he took his plea. But in that time that he was out of jail, he went and got another trafficking charge that he was not sentenced on until, I think it was last year. It was about 4 years later before he was sentenced on it. So he ends up, from 2 different crimes, he ends up with 2 70 to 93. And 70 is what, 5 years and 10 months is his minimum. So even with 2 of those, he still doesn't have what I got.
So he got about 10 years.
Yeah, he gets out in his release date is in October of 2027. But for the first one, for the one that we were together, he would have gotten out. I think it's next July that he would have gotten out. Yeah. So while I'm sitting here, it it really it just, I mean, it pisses me off. Just to be straight up, it pisses me off a lot that I got what I got for somebody else's drugs.
My question is this: why your son didn't take the charge if it was his? Why didn't he say, "This is mine. This is not hers. She don't know what the hell is going on. This is my drug."
I feel like I thought a lot about that. I've been locked up a little over 5 years now, and I thought a lot about that. When I first came to prison, I couldn't even say his name. I was so hurt and angry because he always said, "Mom, I will do the right thing. I will tell them." So I'm like, well, you need to tell them now. You know, you need to be, you've had like, a year and a half here. You should have told them that day, and you didn't. But this is what I feel like. I feel like, because I find out later also, he had never quit doing drugs. He was not straight. He was not clean. He was doing meth and heroin the whole time that he was not with me. But he was, portraying himself as, oh yeah, I'm doing great. I feel like he was caught up in his addiction so much that it was, I'm going to save my ass. I'm going to do what I got to do to save my ass. And then, if I can do that, then maybe I'll help my mom. That's how I feel that his thinking was. I feel like he thought if he said, hey, she didn't know, this is mine, I feel like that he thought that he would automatically have to go to prison for the 18 or, whatever years. And I also, even after he took his plea, they can't change it. They cannot change his time after he's taken his plea. So why would you not? And he did finally at one point write a letter saying, well, that he never come out and said what he needed to say. He never come out and said, my mom didn't know anything about it. This was all me. But, I was a very selfish little jerk and, whatever. He has never. Now we can write to each other now, and he says, oh, he's sorry, and he would take my time if he could, but he's not doing anything to try to do that.
Nah, I don't believe that. That's a bunch of crap. He would take the time if he could.
If he would take,
he should have never let his mother go to prison. Period, point blank.
Exactly.
Period, point blank.
Exactly.
You're going to get time anyway. Why would both of you have to do time when you could just do the time and it was yours? It was your drugs. It wasn't your mother's, man. That's terrible.
Exactly. It's
not right.
Yeah, so, no, it's not right. It's totally not right. I mean, I try to, I forgive him. I try to look at it like, okay, this is not about me and my son. It's not about me and drugs. It's not about me in prison. It's about me and God.
Yes.
And just thank God, I have, since I've been in prison, I don't get high. I've never gotten high. If I think about getting high, I feel like I've been hit in the stomach with a baseball bat. I don't want to get high. And I try to be good to people. I try to do the right thing. But I'm still, I'll be 64 years old in October. And my release date is in January of 2035. I've got there's an agency in North Carolina. It's called Prisoner Legal Services, and it's like the state. You know, it's the state pretty much fighting the state. They try to right wrongs, and I feel very lucky that they have been doing things for me. And okay, I had an appeal in the beginning. I lost the appeal. So Prisoner Legal Services, they filed an MAR for me, and I got I have a hearing. I get to have a hearing to go to court to see if my attorney was ineffective. But that was awarded to me a year ago in February. And in the meantime, my lawyer says she's going to try to get the plea back that they offered me. Because basically I got about 9 more times than what the plea was. And that's just too much, you know.
Right.
So in the meantime, it's taken, you know, it's been since February last year that I got that, the hearing award, you know, awarded to me. But with the COVID, you know, and all that, so I understand. But I talked to her in December, around the 1st of December. She said that that DA was not cooperating. He wouldn't even return her calls. So he's going to retire in a few months, so she's going to try to talk to the new one and see, you know, about getting me back the plea.
Yes.
So I found out through a friend. Well, okay, that DA retired December 31st. I have not heard anything from her since. It's 6 months. That's 6 months now.
Yeah.
And you know, I haven't heard anything from her. So.
But she knows she did you wrong. She knows she did you wrong. That's why she's not returning.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Well, see, I can't call her. The Prisoner Legal Services does not take phone calls. But I mean, I don't know. I'm to the point of like, are you trying to help me or not?
Can your lawyer call?
Surely. She can call me, yes, and that's what she did in December. She called and set up a time, you know, for me to call her back and talk to her. But I can't just call her up,
right?
On the, you know, from my end, I can't because they don't take calls from prisons.
Are you talking about your attorney, right?
So, yeah, my attorney, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to do all that time. You got to keep fighting. Don't give up. I don't think you're going to do all that time. I think you're going to get it overturned, but you got to fight. You got to keep the fight, and you got to keep the faith. Believe me, keep praying. I think God's going to get you out of there. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You don't deserve that time at all.
Yeah.
I listen to your story. You don't deserve that time.
I don't think I do. I really don't think that I do.
Don't.
I mean,
no, you really don't deserve that time. You just got to keep fighting, keep the faith. You're going to go home before. You're not going to do that whole 18 years. Believe me, if you keep the fight going and keep praying, I'm telling you. Don't give up.
Yeah. I don't. It's, you know, it's hard that, you know.
I know it's hard,
I don't.
but you got to do it. This is your life.
Yeah.
This is your life, so you got to fight for your life.
Yeah, that's what it is. Because
and your son,
for me,
the son should still write that letter to the court and confess.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I mean, why aren't you doing this? I mean, why aren't you doing this? And I have asked my attorney if I should write to the judge, because she says, okay, the judge feels bad, the DA feels bad, the other lawyer, he feels bad. So I'm like, well, if everybody feels so bad, then why aren't they letting me out of here? I'm still sitting here 5 years later.
Right.
You know, I've had one visit in 5 years, other than my lawyer. I only had my sister, and I had a boyfriend. He was my childhood sweetheart. We used to hold hands on the school bus. We had about 1 year together when this happened. And he come to visit me one time. He has times when he loses hope, and so he doesn't talk to me for a while. And we went for 1.5 years without talking, and then we talked for about 9 months, and now it's one of those times when he's not talking to me. So, you know, I'm like, it's like you're totally abandoned. I don't have anybody. My sisters went to California 4 times in 5 years. but she can't drive out here and see me, you know? I mean, it's like you are abandoned. One of my younger brothers died in April, and you know, I was able to get a copy of his obituary, and that's all. That's all, you know. Yeah. It's just, it's like you're stranded on a desert island with no hope in sight.
Wow. Well, there's always hope. There's always God. Believe me.
Yeah.
Believe me. You keep praying. You keep praying, and you keep talking to God, and He's gonna get you out of here. I'm telling you, you're not gonna do all that time. You're not. Just can't give up the fight.
No, and I won't. And I thank you so much for your encouragement. You know, and for you telling me that, because you know it really feels good to talk to somebody that believes. You know. That believes.
Yeah, I heard your story, and I believe that you're not going to do all that time. That was totally wrong. You were treated very unjustly, very unjustly. And God's going to pay you back in a big way, where He's going to bless you in some type of way that's going to change your whole life in a good way. Believe me.
I hope so, because
you got to keep the faith.
I mean, and I've got, this is what I don't understand. I've got the proof that one cop got on the stand and lied. I've got proof that things were done wrong. Things were not things that were like in my discovery. There's a picture of a ledger laying on the seat of the truck, and they made a big deal out of this ledger. They said it come out of my purse, and the ledger would not even fit in my purse. It was not my ledger. It had nothing in it to do with me or anybody. I mean, you know, and I've seen enough that if that ledger had been in my purse, they would have photographed it in my purse first and then maybe took it out. It wouldn't have been laying on the seat of the truck.
Hey, did you write to the governor?
You have 60 seconds remaining.
No, I haven't, because you can't do that here unless you've already exhausted all of your appeals.
Okay.
So that's why I haven't. Yeah, that would be my next step if I don't get relief from what I've got going now.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your story with me. We're about to get disconnected again. And can you give me a follow-up call on Tuesday?
Yeah. What time?
Give me a follow-up call.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
I'm sorry, what?
Tuesday at 3 p.m.
At 3 o'clock. Can we make it later? Because I get off of work at 3.
All right, Tuesday, whatever time you get off, just call me on Tuesday.
Okay, I will do that, Vernon. Thank you so much.
Well, I'll be waiting, too. You have a good day, Rebecca. I'm going to pray for you, too.
Thank you so much. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I'll talk to you Tuesday.